Hello world, welcome back to CyberCrit. Today in this particular video, we will be discussing how you can basically install a complete Jenkins CI/CD pipeline. So what we are actually going to cover in this video is that we will be installing a Jenkins onto the Linux server, and the server can be from any service provider, AWS, Microsoft Azure, or any. It does not matter. It just have to be a Linux machine running onto a server. And again, we will be installing Jenkins. We will be creating a process in which once you simply write the code and push it to the GitHub, it will automatically get deployed on your server. So if you want a quick solutions to get this process up and running onto your server, this is the video for you. So with that said, let's get this video started. So in this particular case, what I will be using is DigitalOcean cloud provider that provides a Linux virtual machine, and it's quite easy to spin it up. And I just use it for my personal projects and personal knowledge gains. So I'll be using that. So let me open up the DigitalOcean, and this is the droplets. So I will simply create a droplets, and droplets is nothing but a virtual machine. In terms of AWS, you can understand it as an EC2 machine, or with Azure, you can understand as a virtual machine. So here we can choose any country. And of course, if you are going to do this, I will be showing the steps that is going to basically work in Ubuntu machine. And for other Linux, there should be just a slight bit tweak in the commands that we are going to install. But if you are going to follow our steps, just make sure to search for those particular installation if you are doing it on any other Linux flavor. So I will be doing on Ubuntu and regular SSD, 1 gigs of RAM, and here we have the two options, SSH key as well as the password. So here I will be using the password, but this is not going to impact our solutions even a bit. If you are using on AWS, you might have the SSH key enabled, or here I will be using just the password. So once the password is set, I will click on create droplets. And this is simply going to create a droplet, which is nothing but an Linux machine that we would have the access to. And here, let me show the code that we are going to deploy. So this is basically a very simple Python fast API app. So it can basically work with any libraries. It can be on Node.js, it can be Flask, it can be any. And here the main trick is in your Docker file. So whatever you are basically going to install, you need to make sure to create a Docker file for it. So here, as I'm using Python, I have used the Python version. And with the Docker, we can easily check if our code is running on our machine, and if it is simply going to run on the cloud. And here the most important thing that I would like to show you is that we will be working with .env files. And as we don't push the .env file to the cloud, how we are actually going to manage this, we are also going to see this. So here for this endpoint, I am simply created is just /route, and it will simply return whatever is inside our env. So just let's just check this. And here in our env, I will just say well done, things like that. And I will say docker compose. So I will simply say docker compose a build, which is simply going to build using our docker compose file, which is taking the environment variables into consideration. And here we are passing the environment variable file that it have to take. And let's see. So now actually our code is up and running, and let's just simply check it in our fast API. So previously I have called it, but previously env was hello. Let's click again, and here we have written well done. So which means it's working fine. So now let's quit this, and now let's move on to our server part, which is the most interesting part. So here we have to basically copy this IP address. So let's just go back. Simply copy this and let's SSH into it. So I will simply SSH root at the rate, and let's paste it up and press enter. And after this, we have to basically say yes, and then we have to basically enter the password that we used to create it once we were on the droplet website. So I will simply write that password, and let's see. So now we are in our Linux machine, and here we are seeing root, Ubuntu, and things like that. So the first thing that we need to make sure is to install some of the dependencies. So I have created this code that can basically help you understand what we are actually going to do. So firstly, we have to basically install OpenJDK. So OpenJDK is basically going to be required in order to simply install Jenkins, because Jenkins is basically dependent on Java. So that's the reason we are simply adding the repository first, and then we will update them, and then we are going to simply install them. So we have added the repository for Java. And now let's also add the repository for our Jenkins. And then we are simply going to update it at once, and we are simply going to install it. And I will provide this code into the description so that you can basically go there and have a check and use this code. And let's paste it up. So we have also added the Jenkins, and now let's start the update. So now we are simply updating the repository. So all of these things are set in our repository. So if we try to install it, they get installed. So now we have done this. Now the next thing is to basically install our OpenJDK. So we added a repository earlier. Now we are simply going to install it. And the next thing that we will be installing is basically Jenkins. So now we have installed the OpenJDK. Now let's just test its version. So I'll simply run this Java version, and you can see 21.0.3. Just make sure whenever you are watching this video, make sure to have the latest one. So now let's try to install the Jenkins. And here in this OpenJDK command, this -y was to basically say, I accept all the terms and conditions. Don't ask me yes or no. Like here it have asked yes, because in this particular command we did not basically pass -y. So if you want it to be done automatically without you asking, just simply add -y, and it's not going to ask, and it's simply going to install it. And once its installation is done, we have to basically start the Jenkins. And we have to also add it so that once the server restarts due to some crashes or anything, the Jenkins server should automatically restart itself. We don't have to manually go there and start it. So that also we are going to do. So now let's basically run the start command. Let me clear the screen. Let's start our Jenkins. And once it's started, we have to basically use this enable command, which will enable the Jenkins to automatically start once the server restarts. And if you are enjoying this video till now, please make sure to hit that bell icon and subscribe to our channel. And also, if it's funny, you can simply click on like or dislike as you are liking or disliking this video. So it can give some warning, but let's first enable it. So I think it's basically enabled, and let's check the status now of the Jenkins, and it's enabled, and hopefully it should be running. I will check it. But if you go to this IP address and you basically need to access it, you can simply go to the port 8080, and here is the port which will allow you to access Jenkins on the web. So if you are on any cloud service provider, make sure to allow that particular port to be open and accessible. So in the case of AWS or EC2, you have to basically go to the settings and allow it. And for any other, you can basically also try this command, sudo uf allow. And this command is basically going to allow the port 8080 to be accessible to you. So now once these all things are done, the next and the most crucial thing is to basically install the Docker and Docker Compose files. So in order to do that, in order to install Docker, we can simply search install Docker Ubuntu, not Docker Compose yet. We also have to install the Docker Compose. Let's use this itself. Let's go down, sudo update. We already have updated it. Few requirements. Let's get it from the official Ubuntu website. Installation methods. These all things that we have to basically copy and paste it. So here I'll simply copy this and simply dump all of them at once. And this is simply going to add Docker. It's not going to actually install yet. So till it's basically doing that, for the Linux install Docker package, we can use this particular command. And let's see, we have already installed it. And let's say -y so that it basically install it without us intervening it and manually writing yes. So while this is happening, let's also try to think what else is required. So once the Docker is installed, the next thing that's required is basically a Docker Compose file. So the Docker Compose, we have the Docker Compose and we run our server using Docker Compose up, Docker Compose down, Docker Compose build, and all these commands. So we have to also install a Docker Compose. So for that, we are going to be using this particular command, which is simply going to add or download the Docker Compose into our local bin directory, and from there we can basically install it. So let's simply copy this particular command and paste it, which is going to download the latest version, which is 2.27, and you can check the latest version of your at the recording of the time, but of course this is also going to work pretty fine. And once it's done, you have to change its, let me simply copy and paste this to change its permission, and let's check its version if it's working perfectly fine or not. So Docker Compose version 2.27, so yes, it's working. And now if you start and go to the Jenkins and create the credentials and things like that and try to do the CI/CD pipeline, it will cause some error because you need to give permissions to your Jenkins to actually allow running the Docker container. So for that, we are simply going to be using this particular command, which is this user mode ag docker Jenkins. So we are basically allowing it to run, and now things are set up. Now let's go to this website and refresh it, and let's see why is it not running, or is there any problem with our Jenkins or not. So this command basically shows the log, and here I think let's try to restart our Jenkins. So in order to restart, just like this particular command start, we can simply say restart. And this actually happens from time to time. We have to basically restart the Jenkins and things like that. But this only happens during our initial setup. There might be some error which might get fixed just with the restart command. And let's hope it works. Until this process is occurring, we have to basically go to our GitHub and get our developer settings. Go to our settings. Go to the developer settings down here, developer settings. And in the developer settings, go to the personal and click on fine grained tokens. So I'll simply delete one of these and use my password. Confirm. And here, as soon as you see the restart has completed, this Jenkins sign-in is automatically started. So sometimes if it just keeps on starting Jenkins, you can simply restart it and it works. And now we have to basically set up the password. Let's complete our this task. So we have to generate the new token. So here we have to basically name it. So I will name it CI CD, and expires in 30 days. You can change it according to your plan, and you can also add custom and resource owner and all repository. I am giving it permission, and it will expire in 10 July. That does not worry me. I'll simply copy and paste this here because we will be needing this in future. So now let's go to the Jenkins and simply copy this, and let me write cat and paste it, and this will give us this particular command or the code that we have to basically paste here in order to basically set up our user. So here for user, I'll simply click on install suggested plugin. So it will install all the required plugin that will be available to help us in our GitHub and connect GitHub with our project. And the project that we will be using is, let me go to my repository. This is the project that I have pushed on the GitHub. This is the same project that we have seen. So for this project, we have to go to the settings, go to the webhooks. I'll simply delete this one, and I'll simply go to add, and here payload URL, I have to simply copy this particular URL, go to this webhook, simply paste it, and here in your application select application JSON, and here just push the event or just send me everything. Just click on add webhooks, and the webhooks is simply added. Now let's wait for this installation process to complete. So now we have to basically create our admin user. So I will just say cyber, password will be, let's say pass, pass, full name I will write my own name. Email address I will just use some dummy because it's not necessary for me because I am showing you, but for you it might be necessary, so use the credentials accordingly. So this is the URL, this is same as our own URL. Click on save and finish and start using Jenkins. So now the first and must thing to do is to basically connect our Jenkins with the GitHub. For that you have to click on the manage Jenkins, click on system, and here is the main settings of the Jenkins. But the thing that we are interested in is our GitHub. So let's go down. So click on add GitHub server, and here we have to basically write our name. So I will say git pipeline. You can name it actually anything, and here we have to basically add the credentials that we basically got. So here we will simply click on Jenkins. So here in username password select a secret text, and we are simply going to go to the secret text that we copied from the GitHub. That is this particular thing, that was the secret that we got from our developer settings, and here we are simply going to paste it up and click on add. And once it's say created, we can simply click on test connection. Okay, we have to actually select this secret text and click on test connection, and it will say the username of yours and rate limit, and just simply click on save. And this is the only setting that you need to do in this. Now we have to basically create a job, and this is what is going to allow us to run our project. So here you can name whatever you want, but it's usually a good practice to basically name of your project, to basically put the name of the projects. But I have just kept the first letter capital just to make sure, ensure you that the name does not make any changes. And here is the important thing. Here for the source code, okay, here we have to basically provide the project URL, and here is the project URL. And here in the branch, if you go here, this just contain main branch. So here we have to just write main, and we can simply scroll down, and the build triggers. In the build triggers, we have to select GitHub hooks. So because we have already created the webhook that connect the GitHub to our Jenkins, and this will bridge the connection. And here is the next important thing. In the build step, we have to write the execution script. So here let me just simply copy paste the script, and I will explain you what we are actually trying to do. So here the first and most important thing here, we are simply writing cat, and we are creating a .env file, and inside the .env file we are simply pasting all the environment variables that we have, and we are saying end of file, and we are simply creating a .env file. And if you have multiple different variables, you can click on enter and keep on entering the things inside here, and this will enable you to basically use the environment variables. And we are changing the permission so that you have the correct permission to access the file. And then we are saying docker compose down. So why is it required? Because let's suppose in the case your code is already running and you deploy the changes, so again the CI/CD pipeline will be triggered and it will start to build it. But we have to first make sure that our old code is down, and then we build on top of it, because if we try to do both build at the same time, it will simply crash. So we are saying down, and we are building it, and we are making it up. And let's save it. And now let's go to the dashboard, and here is our fast CI/CD pipeline, and let's try to run it out. And once it is started, you can simply see the progress here. And if you want to see the complete progress in the console output, you can basically see what all steps it is actually taking. So it's building, it's now running pip install, things like that. And let's see how it goes. So it's installing the libraries and things like that. Till then, let's make a small change to our code. Like this is instead of hello, we can say new imsg is equal to new world or things like that, or anything. It can be anything. And let's see if this step is finished, and if we want to access it, we can simply go to this particular URL. Okay, let me add another so that I can share you the link. It's 8000, because if we go to the Docker file, we have exposed the port 8000, and here also we have mapped it. So here you are saying hello world, because this is hello world env hello, because that's the command that was basically stored earlier. So if we go and check here, the old message was hello world, and the env was hello. So of course the hello was pushed, because if you see in this particular command, in the sample data, we have entered hello, and that is what is getting reflected here. And this is how we have successfully deployed a CI/CD pipeline. But just to make sure that it runs automatically, I will try to prove it to you by simply going to the fast CI/CD pipeline, and here I have made the changes. I will simply say git commit -am added new change, and I will simply git push origin main, and I am simply pushing my code. So it's pushed, and what actually is going to happen here, if I refresh it, this commit is made, and now this have basically triggered the Jenkins. So if we go to our Jenkins in our fast CI/CD pipeline, okay, so here I have missed one thing, that is this particular thing that we have to basically add GitHub_webhooks, and I have to simply click on update webhooks. That was the reason we are not the code is not getting automatically deployed onto our server. And let me make a change, and then we can revisit our fast CI/CD pipeline, and then we are going to see the changes. So I'll just simply make a very small change, just a comment here, things like that, and I will just say git commit added a new change, git push origin main, and because this change is not yet in our server, so that is the reason why we will be seeing, of course here you see the new build is automatically started. So pending, finished waiting, and now it's basically getting deployed. So what actually happened was, we have to basically add the URL in the correct form that will basically enable this Jenkins CI/CD pipeline complete process. And here you see the pipeline have already started, and here from this you can see the console output, and it automatically have started the deployment. And if we go to this link while it's getting deployed, you are going to see nothing, because we have made the server down, and now once it's built, it will be up and running. So it's finished. Now if we visit here we say new message, new world. So this is how you can basically enable or create a complete CI/CD pipeline, and I hope this video was very useful, because it took lots of effort and timing, and you already would have learned too much new things from this particular video. And yes, if you did, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel, and thanks for watching. I'll meet you in the next one.